Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Sumbul, and this is part of a series of Mulaqaat, which me and my two of my friends, we started off back a year back, and I have with me Moona Fazal, and one of our group members, Asad Iqbal, who's not here right now, he's in Sharjah. So this is basically, we started this as a series of cognitive conversations that were around design and new media, and we've been holding these for the past 1 year. Today, we have with us Richard. Richard is a Toronto-based photographer and an art educator as well. He has been visiting Pakistan often, and he has previously he has taught at Indus Valley School and the Multan College of Arts, where he developed some new courses as well. I would like to invite Richard, and he will explain you better what he has been up to since he's been here in Lahore now.
Thank you so much, Sumbul. And thank you to all the members of Mulaqaat, Moona and Asad. I'm really privileged to be here, in particular because actually Moona and also Asad, sorry about that, were my students many, many years ago. In fact, it was, I believe it's now 13 years since I did that. So it's been a long time, and I'm so grateful to see a few of you here. It's a real treat. And I hope you're going to enjoy this. It's going to be a little bit of a trip down memory lane, but I'm also going to share what I did at that time, which I think was quite useful. And what is happening is I've noticed that in coming to Lahore and meeting Moona, talking to Asad again, seeing some of the other students, I'm just kind of blown away by what everybody has done and how they've moved forward in their lives, and it's just been a real joy to see that. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, just have to get my computer fired up here again, sorry about that. I am going to take us back to 2007 in Karachi, and I was teaching there as visiting faculty, and I noticed something with regards to the students. And what I ended up doing was taking some time to write a paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with reading what I put together at that time. And it was called, the paper I wrote, it was actually a course called exactly what's on the screen here, and what is the best thing I can be doing right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to scroll back 10 years from there to answer the question which you might all have, which was, how did this Gora get here in the first place? So hopefully you'll find that informative, and if not, a little bit entertaining. So here we go. And what is the best thing I can be doing right now? Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it now. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And that's a quote by Goethe, as interpreted by the Scottish mountaineer W.H. Murray. While pursuing an undergraduate degree, students are inundated with new information, often with barely enough time to process it. In this mad scramble to complete the assignments and keep their head above water, they often lose sight or get confused about where they want or wanted or need to go. And what is the best thing I can be doing right now? This is the question that creative people return to over and over again throughout their lives. If the question is not answered, it can take years to come back to, as other forces inevitably impose the answers on the creative person. These answers may not be the best or most healthy ones, or perhaps the question eventually gets drowned in the sea of real life. This, when it happens to a creative person, is a tragedy. It is such an important question, a course to help one deal with it seems only logical. This is an experimental course that allows communication design students to bring together their interests, passions, talents, and ideas in order to create something the shape and scope of which they may never have imagined. What they choose to do, the media they use, whether they work in a group or solo, is entirely up to them. All projects are self-directed but guided by the instructor and outside advisors as and when required. Students will be encouraged to embark on projects that have multiple stages or ones that naturally lead to future self-directed projects. The idea is to allow the participants in the class to create their own unique path into the world of communication design. If all goes to plan, they will also discover ways and means to travel this path and continually amaze themselves as to where it takes them. So what exactly do we do in this course? Anything, but definitely something. The course will aid students in discovering or rediscovering what they truly would like to pursue at this stage of their creative lives. Students will then be challenged to inventively use the skills they have developed or develop new skills in order to put themselves on a path towards making these goals and dreams a reality. The instructor will guide the process with additional help coming from class participants and perhaps some outside experts. As this course is designed for communication design students, it is assumed that their chosen project will be at least remotely related to their field of study. If not, that's perfectly fine as well, as long as they can explain how their project will help them get to where they want to go and the results of the endeavor are somewhat measurable. Students will be graded on how they are able to manage to meet the project criteria that they themselves generate. Disastrous results or incomplete projects will not necessarily result in a failing grade. However, students will have to demonstrate that they have put sufficient effort into their incomplete or disastrous projects and explain what they've learned from the experience. As mentioned, plans for incomplete or multi-stage projects are welcome, but the goals for the initial stages for this course will have to be outlined at the onset. The idea here is to create a project that would naturally lead to other projects and possibilities, even if by pursuing the project the student discovers what they thought they wanted to do wasn't right for them at all. Collaborations are welcomed, as there is nothing as magical as working with people who share your vision. What kind of projects are we talking about here? As mentioned previously, anything. Perhaps someone has an idea to create a children's book and they team up with another student who has an illustration style that's perfect for such a project. Then there could be someone else who is technically brilliant who would be interested in doing pre-press work, and another still that has always wanted to get their foot in the publishing world, etc., etc. Or perhaps students have taken away from, have been taken away from the other things they have enjoyed, and they want to somehow blend these activities back into what they are doing, so that these special things can continue to be part of their lives. Possibly a student who enjoys sampling different foods will give themselves an assignment to photograph and review several restaurants in order to create an online Karachi restaurant guide. Another who enjoys horseback riding can create a documentary about how beach development in Karachi is affecting the riding community. Then there could be the student who has always wanted to explore and document the wonders of Russia's Lake Baikal, who sets the first stage of her goal as learning to scuba dive and how to use an underwater camera. The list can and does go on and on. Along with actually creating the work, strategies for getting the work to a larger audience when it is ready will also be discussed. Research into determining ways to generate income from the work produced will also be part of the program. The classroom sessions, what are they like? Initial classes will be all about getting ideas sorted, and the class participation will be an area, and class participation in this area will be key, as it will throughout the course. Ideas will be discovered, knocked around, refined, and working strategies built. As production begins, all students are expected to participate in ongoing discussions and reviews of their classmates' projects. Bonus marks will be offered to students who can offer useful suggestions, advice, and aid in keeping their colleagues, helping their colleagues along their journey. And who is Richard Seck? Richard is uniquely qualified to teach this class, as the question posed at the beginning of the course description, and what is the best thing you can be doing right now, has been his lifelong study. Richard's most recent answer to the question has brought him to Pakistan. He holds a degree in photography from Canada's acclaimed Ryerson University. Along with being a photographer, designer, writer, he has traveled extensively throughout North America, Europe, and Asia. His work ranges from participating in and writing about cross-country motorcycle endurance rallies to co-producing art exhibitions. Samples of his adventures can be found in Azure Magazine, BMW Magazine, Canadian Car Guide, Canadian Motorcycle Guide Online, Canadian Architect, Cycle Canada, Nukta Pakistan, Road Bike USA, the Toronto Star, which was Canada's largest daily newspaper, Two Wheels Australia, and publications by Tashin and Lal. Recently, he has begun exploring and documenting the remote areas of Pakistan with the help of the Karachi-based off-road club, offroadpakistan.com. Whew, sorry about that. That's a lot of reading. I'm going to come back to this, but I think what I need to do is do a little bit of an explanation about how I got to Pakistan. Ooh, I wonder what that was. Anyways, here we go. Anybody heard of this book? Did you use it? Okay. Okay, this is an interesting book. Back in, I think this was early November 1997, I was particularly stuck in my career at that time. I had shifted from photographing artwork to architecture, and things weren't going as smoothly as I would have liked. So I actually stumbled on this book, and I started reading it. And the first exercise is when you get up in the morning, you start writing before you do anything else. You write 7 pages and non-stop, whatever is your stream of consciousness, essentially. And you'll be, if you ever try this, you'll be amazed at how well that can work. The second exercise was doing something called the artist date. Okay, that's where you take yourself out on a date to do something that you always wanted to do, but maybe you just haven't got to that point, or maybe there's something that's come up and you just haven't got the get up and go to go and do it, essentially. So at the time, I had a friend who was a Japanese paper maker, and she was opening a new studio, and it was a group show. So I decided that was going to be my artist date. So on a very snowy and cold November day, I drove over to the studio and I started looking around. And on the second floor of the studio, I discovered a pottery display. Okay? And the pieces were mesmerizing. I picked up one bowl and I literally got lost in it. I was just staring into it and I didn't know what I was looking at. And I heard this voice come up behind me. And that voice said, "What are you seeing?" And I didn't know what to say. It just came out of my mouth. I said, "I think I'm seeing an alternate universe." And that couldn't be more true. And that voice came from somebody that you may know. Does this look familiar to anyone? Okay. So for those of you that don't know, this is Scheherazade Alam. Okay? She is Pakistan's first female studio potter, okay? And at that time, she was living and working in Toronto, and that was her show. And from that meeting, what ended up happening was I started shooting artwork again. And the first shoot that we did with her was looking at the artwork exactly as I had seen it. And this is an accordion fold brochure that we did as a result of some of that work. It's one that she brought back with her to Pakistan. So that was my introduction to Pakistan. I met Scheherazade. I kind of became part of the family, and and we did many projects afterwards. Oh, okay. We did many projects together afterwards. I helped her with many shows, the marketing material, helping with exhibition design, and it was an amazing experience. And one of the great things about Scheherazade is, and one of the things I remember the most is that she was, if somebody had a really great idea, she would get behind it with full force. Like, I mean, she actually called herself a cheerleader. And I thought that was a great word for her. So I'm scrolling back to, so this is about a year later. I've always been a big fan of motorcycles ever since I've been a kid. And for many years, I never had one. And I was really missing it. And what I did was, at that time, there was one shop in Toronto called McBride's Motorcycles, and it had all the different brands, all the latest models. And what I decided to do was to walk into there and to treat it like an art gallery. I wanted to see if anything would move me at that point. And when I went in there, there was one particular motorcycle that was new to BMW at the time, and it just blew my mind. I thought it was a piece of rolling sculpture. And of course, I looked at the tag and quickly left because it was not going to be within my budget. Later, I was reading in a magazine that there was going to be an exhibition in New York City at the Guggenheim Museum. And that exhibition was called The Art of the Motorcycle. And interestingly, it was sponsored by BMW. So I was sitting around with a group of friends like this, and one of them said, well, you know, you're a photographer and you have a degree. Couldn't you write an article about this show, and then maybe you can convince them to give one of these motorcycles to you to go to New York? I thought that was a brilliant idea. And I spoke to Scheherazade about it, and she got behind it. And this story is very long, and my wife normally kicks me if I drag it out too long. So long story short, boom, here we are. This is me riding to New York City to cover the art of the motorcycle. And this, all it required was a one-page proposal to BMW to get this all done. It was just a letter where it was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see what happens. And actually, at the time, I thought, there's no way it's going to work. It's not going to work, but I'll learn something from it. You know, I'll just give it a shot. Okay? But lo and behold, there I am photographing these motorcycles inside New York's Guggenheim Museum. This exhibition, by the way, was designed by Frank Gehry. Those of you that follow architecture will probably know who Frank Gehry is. And it was amazing. And this changed my life. As a result of this particular exhibition, I would go on to get a job as a photographer, designer, advertising manager at what ended up becoming Canada's most popular online motorcycle magazine. So this is, we're talking 1998, so it was just, the net was just in its infancy. So this whole project was, it took me off on a whole new tangent. And life was good. My architecture business was picking up. I was working with Scheherazade. I was connected with the art world. I was in the world of motorcycles. Couldn't be better. And then, as life happens, on January 18, 1999, a phone call came from Lahore. And does anybody remember what happened on that day? Somebody's nodding. The phone call was with regards to the fact that Scheherazade's husband and her daughter Jahanara had been shot and killed in their family home in Lahore. So that event basically took me off on another tangent altogether. It was devastating, and none of us knew what to do, and Scheherazade was taking a long time to recover. And the recovery, a bit of the recovery came as a result of another project that I had started working on like about a year, well actually probably 2 years before. Shortly after I met Scheherazade, she discovered I was half Finnish, okay? And when she did, she came out with a catalog and she presented it to me and she said, here, this is part of your heritage. And it was a catalog of the Finnish artist designer Timo Sarpaneva. And I opened it, and I had no words. I mean, it was just something that just resonated with me. And I knew that Finland had this history, but I just was never that close to it. And from that moment, I decided that what I wanted to do was to go and explore my own art and design history. And I started a project. And actually, this motorcycle project that we just talked about taught me or gave me the tools to do that. I developed a wonderful relationship with BMW Canada because I had done this project on the art of the motorcycle. I got, I don't know, I think it was 3 or 4 different North American publications picked it up, and they just gave me carte blanche. So they were in big support of me going and doing this time a car-related article, and I was going to go to Finland. I also knew that I had to get in touch with the Finnish embassy, the Finnish cultural attaché, Tourism Finland. I did all that stuff, and I got this going. And it actually, once again, it worked, but the timing was interesting because the timing of this project came together about 6 months after the death of Zahura and Jahanera. And initially it was a project, a personal project for me. And the project got green lighted. I could go. I had, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks with a BMW 3 Series to drive across Finland and explore. They were connecting me with all the artists, designers, architects that I had given them a laundry list for. And I was so excited. But I thought about Scheherazade, and she was the one that was the inspiration for this project. And also, she, when she was studying at the National College of Art, she's a National College of Art graduate, she was looking at Finnish design. This is in the 70s, 80s. Like, this is when Finland, anybody study Finnish design at all? You might want to look into it. Somebody's smiling. At that time in history, Finnish industrial design was at its peak. You know, they were neck and neck with Italy for designing some of the most unique products. You know, just the ability to, they were functional, but they were so beautiful. They were so connected to the earth. It was like mind-blowing stuff. So, anyways. Thank you. So Scheherazade was studying all this back in the day. Okay, she knew all the designers: Ruth Brook, Tapio Virkala, Timo Sarpaneva. These are people that inspired her in Pakistan. In fact, she tried to start something here in Pakistan called Artist in Industry, where that's what the Finns did. Essentially, they would bring the artists into factories, and the artists would design the pieces to be mass-produced. And these are some of the most amazing pieces of industrial design, at least to me anyways, that were created. So anyways, long story short, I spoke to the Finnish tourist board who was organizing everything for us. I said to them, can I bring along an expert on Finnish design? And they green-lighted it. So here we go. By the way, let me just get my little pointer going here. Hello. That is Timo Sarpaneva. The guy that, the book that I was given, I got to go and visit him in his studio and spend time with him and look at his current work. It was mind-blowing, okay? Also, we got to explore some of the most amazing you know, modern architecture that Finland had at the time, and it was, I called my mother, who is Finnish, okay, from the Helsinki train station. And when we were growing up, my mother did things differently from everybody else in the neighborhood. And, you know, when we're dressed very well, going to school with bow ties and stuff, and it's the 70s, and everybody's in shredded jeans, you know, it doesn't always bode well. But I ended up calling her and saying to her, I said, Mom, I just discovered something. I'm not odd, I'm Finnish. So something interesting about Finland is, and I think there's some parallels with Pakistan, and I don't know, maybe that's why I kind of relate to my journey here in this country. If you look into Finnish history, you'll discover that for centuries they were battered by Russia on one side and the Swedes on the other side. They were taken over by either of them. And through this time, somehow, something that was Finnish stuck with them, okay? And Finally, and in 1900, Finland was known as the backwater of Europe. They just thought that there's nothing coming out of there, you know? But it was artists and designers that at the 1900 Paris World's Fair came up with a display that just blew everybody out of the water. It just put them on the map. It was a creative people of that country that actually brought it up and gave it an identity and moved it forward. And then in 1918, they became independent, and with the modern movement, all this amazing design and architecture was embraced and supported. And up until the time that they switched to the euro, became part of the European Union, on their money, you know, like we have like presidents and I don't know, queens in Canada, but on their money, it was all artists. It was the designers, the architects, the composers. That was on their money. Can you imagine? I mean, so, sorry, that was my little ramble about Finland, rah-rah Finland. But I think that what's interesting about that is that it's an interesting model, because I think that it's creative people that make changes that can actually make differences in the world and make differences in the society. And if you look into Finland, there's something called the World Happiness Index. I don't know if anybody's looked into that. But Finland, for the longest time, is at the top of that list. Finland also has the best education system in the world, okay? Like, continually they're at the top of the list. And the education is all free to anyone. And if you, as a student, we have a few students here, go to Finland to do your master's degree, it's free. Like, if you get accepted, they don't charge you anything. Just come to Finland. You have to learn Finnish, that's the only downside. And if you're not a languages person like me, that's a tough one. So anyways, sorry, I kept that Finland thread going a little too long. If my wife was close by here, she'd be kicking me. Okay, anyways, I'm going to just point out something here. This is a church called Kalava Church in a place called Tampere. And it is created by an architect, or an architectural team called Riley and Reima Pietala. And we met them while we were there. And we got along famously. I'll just let everybody settle in here a little bit. Okay. So we got along famously, and before we left, they had a party, okay? So, and that party brought together, you know, most of the people who were Scheherazad's icons of design. She was sitting at the table with them, and I was there too, obviously. And we were able to just sit down and spend an evening with these people, and it was incredible. And one of those people was a guy named Roger Conna, and he was a Welsh writer. Well, he still is. He's still alive. And he had written a massive book on Riley and Reima Pietala. And the next day, we were invited by Roger to a cafe. I remember the name. It's called Cafe Ekberg in downtown Helsinki. And as Roger and I were getting some coffee in the coffee shop, Scheherazade had kind of drifted off, and she was sitting outside on the terrace. And we sat down, and she looked at Roger, and she said, "Roger, I've had a flash. You are going to be the guy who writes the book on my husband," which was Zahura Laklak, who had died just recently. And this was a whole new energy for Scheherazade, because she could do something to help heal what had happened. And after that became my direct contact with Pakistan, because I became part of a team to create the book on Zahura Lak, the introductory book. And we ended up, here we are in Lahore at 90 Upper Mall, and we're doing the excavation work on Zahura's studio. So this project was amazing, and part of it was traveling across the country to collect some of the artwork for documentation, and we also traveled to some of the places that Zuhur enjoyed. So for me, it was just a trip of discovery, and it was, I mean, this is just a little taster of some of the things that I was able to see along the way as I was exploring Pakistan. So that's interesting. So I'm going to come back to that. And in the end, we created this little book. The book, the shape of the book was inspired by a Rowney paint box. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rowney paint boxes. They're exactly that size. So a small book. And there are 2 essays by Roger in it, and then a collection of Zuhur's artwork. This book may still be in the NCA library, the IVS library, and also maybe a few others. So that was incredible. And that book was launched in Karachi, was launched in Lahore, was launched in London, UK. It was part of those book launches as well. And eventually it led to an exhibition in the Greater Toronto area. This is the Art Gallery of Mississauga. Now, if anybody has family in Canada, they'll probably know that that Mississauga is one of the biggest South Asian communities outside of South Asia. So it was a perfect place, and the exhibition was one of the most popular, was one of the most visited exhibitions in the history of this art gallery, the Art Gallery of Mississauga. The exhibition design was by Gulzar Haider. Some of you may know him. He is the head of architecture. He was the head of architecture at BNU for the longest time. And before that, he was the head of architecture at Carleton University in Ottawa, in Canada. So what was interesting about this was the lead into the show here. And these, Zuhur used to do shows on taktis. So taktis were distributed to artists throughout the world, and a big portion of them were distributed to his students. Zuhur, if you don't know him, he was the head of the fine art department at NCA for a long time. He has many students who have gone into the world. Those of you that, some of you might hear from BNU. Rashid Rana was one of his students, Shazia Sikandar. I mean, the list goes on. So they were given that taktis to contribute to the show, and then those taktis led into the main gallery space with Zuhur's work. So that was an amazing trip. Like it was like a complete roller coaster for several years trying to put this all together, and I learned so much in the process. And after that, it kind of got a little quiet. And at that time, my main source of income was working with the motorcycle magazine. So this actually went on, like, but something had changed. Like, I think that I've always been somebody who loves an adventure. And after having an adventure in Pakistan, like I had done, adventures in Canada and the US, you know, however wonderful they are, you can't top the adventure you get in Pakistan. Just going to the grocery store. So anyways, at a certain point, I realized that there was a time to make a change. And the opportunity came when Scheherazade was actually deciding to move back to Pakistan. We had all her stuff packed up in the trailer, and at the last moment she said, I was riding this big BMW at that time, motorcycle, she said, and it looked like actually it had a nickname, it was called the Bumblebee, because it was black and yellow. She said, why don't you just toss the Bumblebee in the trailer and just come to Pakistan? And that idea really appealed to me, and eventually it led me to Indus Valley and this that outline that I had there. So I presented that outline to Shiraz Vania. I don't know if anybody is, I think we have one IVS person here, at least, that will know Shiraz Vania. And she was a particularly open-minded head of the department at IVS. And she read it, and she said, I like it, but I think we have to have a more palatable name. And she came up with a name called Integrated Media, which I kind of like in hindsight. And she said to me, why don't you try this out in a branding course? And I said, why not? And what I ended up doing was working with a group of students, many of them that took my photography class previously, and I used this thing. And in branding, we just started talking about what they wanted to do when they left here, when they left the college. And it took a while. And one of the questions that helped me with getting the answers out was, what do you love to do? Like, what is it that you really engages you, gets you excited, etc.? And for a lot of students, this was like kind of like new territory. Like, nobody asks me about that sort of thing. So it took a while, but what ended up happening was there was a whole range of projects that came out of that. One student who is here today knew very clearly what he wanted to do, and that was he was going to have his own advertising agency when he left, and he put that, he gave himself the assignment to do all the branding for that advertising agency. We had other students that were interested in fashion, and they actually had access to a shoe factory. So I said, well, why don't you make your branding for the shoes? And they actually took it. Didn't she make her own shoes too? I mean, I don't remember that, but anyways. Yeah, and there was the list went on. We had one student who was really into music, Talha, and he made a website related to Pakistani music. That was his project for this. I mean, there was another student named Ahmed Ansari. He made, we're talking, like, this is, what are we talking, 2007, right? Yeah, 2007. He made a video game. Like, I mean, he made a video game for this class. Like, I mean, if anybody's trying to make a video game, you know that you can't do it in a semester class. So anyways, at the end of this, all the students were really stoked about what they had produced, and it was their idea. They said that in the end they came up with a name for what would become a show. They said this is the structure at Indus is they have something called a mini thesis before you do your thesis. It's kind of a primer. And we did this before the mini thesis, so they said we should call this a micro thesis. So there you go. That was the show. Now, if you look at all this, you'll see that that show, they were so keen to do it, we only had a space available for 2 hours. So essentially the show was for 2 hours. You could come and see and check it out. So it was a big success, and I think that you can tell if the students want to, they're so excited they want to share this work with the rest of the school, you know you're onto something, okay? So through that, I ended up getting another unique job, which was to take the students of IVS across Pakistan to introduce them to their own art, culture, and design. And I thought that was interesting because years before, a Pakistani, Scheherazade, had introduced me, half Finnish, to my own culture, which was a mind-blowing experience. So I got to return the favor. And we went from Karachi across Sindh into the southern Punjab, and then all the way to Lahore, making really unique stops along the way to explore the art and design of Pakistan. And it was amazing. Now, part of that trip was meant landing in Multan. And there we were hosted by a new art college called the Multan College of Arts. And we had some wonderful interactions with the students and with the faculty there. And we must have made an impression because shortly thereafter, oh, thank you so much. Shortly thereafter, I got an invitation to come and lead the first group of design graduates into their thesis and into their graduation. which, after spending some time at the Multan College of Arts, we knew that was going, or I knew that was going to be a big challenge. I should mention here, this, well, first of all, I'll talk about this guy. Okay, this guy is Farooq Hamad. If you're anywhere from Multan, you will know who Farooq is. Okay. Mr. Hamad was instrumental in getting me to Multan. He and two other students, one of which is a member of Mulaqaat here, Asad Iqbal, they pushed hard. And as a result, I ended up going there. Now, when I was going there, I knew I would need some help because there were holes in the students' education that needed to be filled. And I thought of one person that would be ideal for the job. In fact, there were two. One of them, and they were both students of mine from IBS. One of them was Marhaba Mujahid, and the other one was this guy. Okay. Okay. Now, if you were to get his grade transcript and judge him on that, you would take his application and you would put it in the bin. But what but what I saw in Mashhad, okay, what I saw in Mashhad was somebody who cared more about helping other people than himself, to his detriment. So what he would do is he would spend so much time helping other people with their assignments that it would just derail his own assignments. And in fact, to kind of offset this, as a result of this trip across Pakistan with the Indus Valley kids, there was an exhibition at the end. I said to Mashhad, this was the incentive, I said to him, either you get an A on this project or I fail you. There's no in between. And he put together a really interesting slideshow of his whole trip experience. And behind that, remind me, Mashhad, it was the dole, right? I wrote it down here. Punjabi dole, okay? He came up with the most intense Punjabi dole track to play alongside of that. And what convinced me to give him the A was this little kid who helped clean up Indus Valley. When that music came on, that kid was just out of his mind trying to figure out how to get into this place and see what was going on there. Like the way he could attract the students and bring them in to see his completely nutty presentation, I dropped him an A. And in the end, I invited him to come to MCA to help out. And the way I sold it to him was this. I said, Mashhad, you're going to come to MCA, and the experience is going to be like trying to climb K2 without any oxygen and ill-equipped. And he came. And I think what I also need to do here is I need to point out somebody else here, which some of you may recognize. This person here was also this person here was also an integral part of our team. What was great about her was that she immediately understood what I was doing. She got it. She got me, which in a lot of, like, basically, it's a rare thing for anybody to really get me. So when that happens, that's a beautiful thing, and she went out along with us to be really supportive. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut to the chase here a little bit and let you know, I'm kind of do a little spoiler here. We ended up producing 3 exhibitions at the Multan College of Arts. The first one, you know, the first one's always dear to your heart. We called Works in Progress. And that is because at the time, the school gallery was a shell, and there was a little sort of talk about where everybody was going to put up their work in the show, and the more senior members of the school quickly grabbed all the areas that were finished in the school for the exhibition. But that's what I wanted. I thought that the rawness of that space was just perfect for the rawness of the students and the staff and teachers as well. So we called it Works in Progress, and you'll see a few photos that will sort of show more of this as we move forward. Now, the next exhibition, this was kind of nutty because, has anybody been to Multan in June? The Multanis have been. The Multanis will know that June in Multan is like 50 degrees Celsius. Your eyeballs start poaching in your head if you're out too long. So we had fun with this exhibition. We called it the Summer Thesis Show in Multan. And you'll notice our little slogan here, the hottest art and design show in Pakistan. So then afterwards, that was followed by a third exhibition, which is called Reviving Art and Design in Multan. And there's a whole story behind that one, which we'll save for another day. So when I was in Multan, when I was in Multan, I basically took what I had started at IVS, and what is the best thing I could be doing right now, and I molded that into a thesis development project. And I had a number of students that went through it. And it was basically the same sort of thing, where it was just really digging down deep into what people really wanted to do. Like, where do you want to go after you leave here? So the whole idea with the thesis was that when they left there, they wouldn't be, you know, wondering, what do I do next? What am I supposed to do? Where do I go? And I don't want them to end up in a place where that is not suited for who they are and what they want to do. So the goal was to have students come away with a portfolio that was them. And also an idea about where they could move forward with all this stuff. And what I'm going to do is just go through a few of the students that I was privileged to work with and tell a little bit of the story of working with them and where they are now. Now, I wish, by the way, I wish I could take full credit for Moona's success, okay? But a big chunk of that credit goes to Farooq Hamad, who you saw earlier. But what I can say is that I was Moona's photography instructor. And actually, this is part of our, what I call now our primal screaming tour of the Rohi Desert. Very memorable trip, by the way. So, again, I can't talk too much about Moona, but I will say that when early on when I came there, I was working with the thesis students, and Farooq was working with Moona. She was in an earlier batch that was coming through. And I remember, Moona, you were really struggling at the time. And there was kind of like a family intervention that came in there. And everybody was concerned that whether Moona should keep going there. And I was asked my opinion. I thought, for sure, why not? I mean, as long as she wants to do it, as long as it's in her heart to keep going, even though she's struggling, let her do it. You know, that was my opinion. And thank God she kept going. And here she is. Now, if those of you that don't know Moona, she is now an assistant professor at NCA, which is, woo, Moona. So I'm so proud, and I'm also I'm so happy that she has met you know, a friend and a colleague at NCA in the form of Sumbul, who's sitting beside her there, and you know, as mentioned earlier, they have formed, along with one other person who we're going to talk about right away, this this organization to present design ideas. So the next person I want to talk about is a guy named Asad Iqbal. Okay, and he is the third member of Mulaqaat. Okay, and I'm going to tell you where he is right now and why he's not here today. But let me just take a glass of water here. Oh, okay. Have to get mentally prepared for this one. What's that? He's on the phone. Hey, Asad. Okay. Asad was a unique character. He really struggled, but what he did know, and actually Asad and Umair were the two students that worked with Farouk to get me to Multan, and I remember their passion. Like, we were, the IVS crew was doing the tour across the country, and they would jump in any IVS tour group that they could get involved with, and they would always come looking for me. And in their bag, they had work they had done, mostly photography. They were really into that at the time. And they would be pulling out photographs and just saying, tell me, tell me what I need to do here. So that energy and that passion was huge. So I always appreciated about that about them. And then when we came to talking about what Asad wanted to do, he had thought about it for a long time, and he said, I wanted to do an animation, okay? Okay, now I have to give you a picture of MCA at that time. There is no animation department, okay? We have a lab full of computers that are ancient, and most of them don't work. Okay? And the computers that are working have so many bugs in them that it's just... there's a student that I'm going to talk about in a minute named Varda. Now, we had a thing when students were coming to show their work at the time. I had an office computer, and hey, Asad! No, you can't point him over here. I'm going to get too distracted by him, but hopefully you can hear. I'm going to talk to him later. So anyways, Asad, what were we talking about? Asad wanted to do this animation, so we've got the facilities that do not support this at all. What we did have, though, was one genius software guy there. And that was, what was his name, Asad? Oh, okay. I'm so bad. Nazar. Yeah. So we started to put the pieces together, but I said to Asad, you know, people who do animations, they're usually on a team, okay? And this takes years. And, you know, like, how are you going to do this within the time slot that you have to create your thesis? He just said, I don't care, I'm going to do it, okay? I said, okay, and we all thought, just go for it. If it doesn't work, you're going to learn something out of it anyways, and let's see what happens. So, long story short, Asad did it. I mean, check this out. Let me see if I can. That's his animation. There's the backdrop. He pulled it off. Now, this was no easy feat at the time, because in order to, you know, you can create, first of all, creating the characters, creating the story, building the whole set, putting it all together is one thing, but then you have to render it, okay? And in order for Asad to render it, what he ended up doing was he would sleep. The only time the load shedding was a little bit lighter was at night. So Asad would sleep in the lab, find the computers that were working, debug them, and start rendering clips of a couple of seconds on each computer so that he could actually then form them together. And he lived there. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see. One of the things that I also remember about Asad, which was very, which I call the Asad technique right now, is when we're coming up with a storyline. He had this idea for the animation, but he didn't have a storyline. So we tried all sorts of methods for figuring out how to do this, but in the end, he came up with the Asad technique. And that was, he went into his room. Any devices that went in the room were thrown out, okay? And he said he was not going to come out of that room until he had the idea. And his family just fed him throughout. He would eat, that was about it, but he did not leave that room. And I think it took days, and then he finally emerged with the idea. And he carried that through and made it work, which was mind-blowing. And I guess that work ethic has continued with him because he has gone on to do some really amazing things. He became He got his, after coming out of MCA, he got his master's degree at NCA. He started teaching there, but alongside he's working in the industry. So he's gone on to do amazing feature films with digital effects and God knows what. I mean, it's amazing projects he gets worked on, but he's also taught, and he became the head of department at NCA, okay? So woo! Woo, Asad! So he's so funny. He's so low-key. He said, yeah, I was the head of department, but I don't think anybody knows. He doesn't have any presence on social media or anything. He's very quiet. He comes in, he gets his work done, and he leaves. And that's how he's got to where he is right now, I think. And hats off. So I think we've got in case anybody doesn't know what Asad looks like, that's him there, doing his thing, showing people new tech. Now, the next character that I want to introduce you to is the second character that was part of the team that followed us around on and became stowaways on the IVS tour. And that is this guy here, Mosaic Academy. Omer, we used to call Omer the Dabbler. Because he tried all sorts of different things, but he really couldn't settle on one thing. So in the end, he came up with this idea to illustrate the myths of Multan, and he did it in photocomposite form. And so this is, like, we're talking 2008? What's that? Is that about right? Yeah. No, more, maybe, I think, yeah, 2008, I guess. And he was coming up with stuff like this. And again, it doesn't show that well because the light's kind of messing it up. But this work in his portfolio took him to I think it's called the Allama Iqbal Academy. And he ended up doing illustrations for the poet to promote the poet in Pakistan. And now he's in Dubai working as an art director. So pretty amazing stuff. This was a real challenge. This student's name is Nivera, and she again took a while to sort this out, but she ended up becoming the inspiration to me to design a class later on called Identifying Problems, Designing Solutions. And what Nivera identified was that at BZU, the Multan College of Art is, for those that don't know, is located inside BZU, which is this massive university in Multan with all sorts of different departments. And it was started in the 70s. And as a result, when new departments got added, they had a different graphic designer for them, and the logos end up looking like kind of a hodgepodge, really. So she identified that maybe what we should do is to create a series, create a cohesive identity for the school, and she ended up using Islamic geometry to do that. But the amount of work that she went into it in terms of trying to get the colors, the design, and also by going and interviewing the heads of the departments to talk about what they wanted to convey with their department, there was a huge amount of work that went into there, and then she was able to produce this, which was incredible. Another student that did some interesting work was Abir, who ended up doing, he created designs to illustrate, calligraphic designs to illustrate the 99 names of God. And he didn't stop there. He made actual rings out of them, okay? So he took these designs, and it was not just a graphic design project, it was a product design project. So, and the efforts that he went through to figure out how to take these designs and to get them onto the actual rings was epic. You know, it took him to Karachi to find a place that could do the laser cutting to the degree that he needed, and then to do the bonding and all the stuff that was required to do it. So it was incredible. And in the end, he married her, and now they live in Australia. So here, some of you may recognize this person. This is Varda. Varda now, well, I'm not gonna tell her where she's at right now. Some of you will know already. Varda, when she was at MCA, could barely speak English, okay? and thanks to Fatima, who acted as my interpreter at that time, I was talking to Varda about what it is she wants to do. And what she was able to spit out the English to tell what she wanted to do. And she said, I want to become a world-famous artist. So what she ended up creating, though, was this Patoli jewelry. And it was amazing. I mean, an epic task to learn the skills with the craftsmen there, to put it all together. And what she's showing here is just a very small sample of what she did. It was this incredible stack of these designs that were all piled up and then made into this incredible carry case that she took to Salima Hashmi, right? And Salima was so blown away with her that she helped with Varda moving her career forward, and now she is a renowned artist, and she is teaching at the Lahore College University for Women, right? So, what's that? Oh, excuse me, Dr. Varda Bukhari. So what you can see here is that this was kind of a unique experiment. Like what we were doing there was, I was just letting the kids go, you know, and do what they really wanted to do with what they had in mind, with where they wanted to go. And what I'm really happy about is that in a lot of cases it worked. And so I'll give a few more examples, and then we'll sort of wrap things up and open it up to questions, and hopefully I'm not talking too much. We'll talk more about whether this worked or not later on. So moving on, this is Sahar Irshad, and she did this kind of identifying problems, designing solutions thing as well. She identified that in Pakistan, children's toys were mostly stuff that you got from the US, and it is not representative of the cultures. So Sahar was an amazing student. She did all the research on different regions of Pakistan, and she made sure that she would do the research on the names that were given to each of these dolls, and descriptions and little bios of the dolls, etc. And then she went, and then of course I think her big thing was also enjoying the fashion design. So she went into incredible detail of like what are the designs of that culture, creating them for the dolls. By the way, I like Karachi Girl. and Rohi Girl here, I ended up buying off her, and is still with me to this day. So it's too cute. So Sahar, when you look at this, she's done fashion design, she's done product design. She also created a website, a selling website, where if she got this business going, she could actually sell online internationally. So that was all put together with her thesis. Like that, to me, is just mind-blowing. And the amount of work that was needed to do that, and the quality of the work. And then look at the display. I mean, mind blown. So I'm happy to report that Sahar has gone on. She's in the US now, and she's working in the fashion industry in Chicago. So, what's that? She worked for Zara, yeah. So, so the thing is, she came into a graphic design school. We let her do this, okay? But this took her to where she wanted to go, okay? And personally, I think that's super important. Got one or two more, so hang in there. Hopefully you're finding this entertaining. This is Sidra, and I'm so happy that Sidra is here today. Sidra is something else. Okay, now Sidra really struggled with what she wanted to do with her thesis. Now, at the time, Sidra had a real interest. I'm going to ask you to quiet down. I'll explain why I can do that to her in a minute. Sidra really struggled with her thesis because part of what Sidra really likes to do is perform, okay? And she was trying to put something together, and we were going like, do a performance for your thesis, that's fine, but that she couldn't get it to gel. And what ended up happening, she stayed a little longer to complete this thesis, and what came out of our discussions was that she really loved her city of Multan. And what she ended up doing was going on to create a tour company which would essentially take people coming to Multan and show them like the gems of Multan, essentially, and she would be their tour guide. So she created the marketing material for this, and one of the big things that was part of the whole package was the direct marketing, where she would go to different schools in Pakistan and she would do a presentation on why you want to come to Multan. Okay, and it was like it was a visual presentation where she would do the narrating. Now, were you working with her at the end with this? Because I think I lost track of who was helping Sidra with this. Anyways, I should just ask Sidra. Anyways, Sidra just arrived before we got here, so I couldn't get the details. But anyways, she rehearsed this thing. Okay, and I, unfortunately, with everything that was going on as we were about to do the thesis presentation, I could not hear what her presentation was before she did it. And when we also, oh, this was fun. I don't know if we had it at this year. Maybe it was another year. But anyways, we had the presentations happening in the library, and it was closed off. So I, as her instructor, could not be part of the thesis review, the instructors that came in from across Pakistan to review the work. And she did the presentation. I could just hear what was going on, like her delivery, etc. But I couldn't hear the words, I couldn't see what was going on. And I remember at the end of that, like, the roar that came from, like, her other students were in the group, then the thesis instructor, the roar that she got of appreciation from that presentation. Like, I don't know, like, I mean, she came out, she was just glowing. I mean, that, Mona's husband, Ali, I don't know where he is, but he gave me he gave me a new word. I think it's creative ecstasy. I think that's what Sidra experienced on that day. And what's really interesting about this project is one of the few projects that, like, where it was actually a marketplace-driven project, where she actually started the business in Multan. She became the tour director. She actually got that business, and she was the go-to for anyone coming to Multan to tour around. And she did it until until her husband got posted, and I know that energy and that creativity is carrying Sidra through with all the things and twists and turns that have come up in her life. Now I better rush here because my computer's not charging. I don't know if there's anybody that can help me out. Okay, well, this will speed things up. While I present here, if we can figure out why we're not getting a no. I'm getting to the end there. Oh, you got it? Yeah, good. TK. Shukriya. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so we're into the home stretch here now. There was one student, and this just came up. I happened to Google MCA because I wanted to find out what was going on. We've been away for so long, and I noticed a name on the list there, Muzna Khan. Okay, now Muzna, she's a powerhouse woman. Like, if I'm not mistaken, she came from, like, her mother was a single parent. She had all sorts of responsibilities, and she still was able to go and do this project that she wanted to do, which was to photograph the gems of Multan, the architectural gems of Multan, the shrines that nobody or few people knew about. And at the time, MCA had, I think, 1 or 2 cameras. Maybe one of them was working at the time. And she had a point-and-shoot camera, okay? So what we said was, you know what, Moona, it doesn't matter what equipment you're using. It's about how you know how to use that equipment, how you make it work, and then you move it forward. And she took this camera, and we taught her how to extract, what her technique should be, how to extract every bit of image quality out of that camera. And she ended up doing this incredible work on the shrines of Multan. Now, what's amazing about this is I lost track of Musna, and I just found out about her being now teaching at MCA. And it was interesting because when I asked her what she wanted to do, she said, I want to have a portfolio that will move my education forward, and eventually I'm going to come back here and I'm going to be the principal of this school. And now, she is now a lecturer at MCA. She has her PhD, and I think Musna's going to do it. So if you're watching this, Musna, go Musna. So anyways, we'll try to wrap things up here. Now, when I came back here, I had said to Moona, I said, you know, all this happened many years ago. And I don't know, I would love to talk about it, but I don't know if it's relevant for what's going on now in the schools of Lahore, in IVS or whatever, but in particular in Lahore because I'm doing this presentation here. So Moona was kind enough to take me around to BZU, to NCA, BNU, sorry, BZU stuck in my head. Thank you. So to BNU, to NCA, and also to a new university that's introducing media studies, and that's Lahore University. And I got to talk with the instructors. And what I'm really happy about, and I'm for all the students that here they're studying, some of these ideas of you know, student-centered, student-driven projects are what is happening in all schools to a greater or lesser degree. I think BNU, it takes it to a whole new level where they have a course, which I'm going to go and try to figure out. It's basically an undergrad course where you can go in there and it's just, you say the project you want to do, and they will bring not only departments within the art school, but BNU has this extensive array of other disciplines. And if you want it, you need to have a mechanical engineer coming in and learn something from that in order to create your project, or God knows what. Maybe there's some sort of business model you want to put together. You can use all the resources of the school to really take that project to another level. So I think that that's, to me, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that that's happening. And it gives me the feeling that, you know, all is well in Pakistan. And I also, you know, spending time with Moona, with Sumbul, and knowing Asad, and some of the other teachers that I met along the way, it's just like, these people care about education, and they're doing their best. They're working hard to do something that's amazing. So I'm really grateful, and I wish all the students that are here have some wonderful experiences, follow their passions, and just go and do some incredible things with your life. I will do. I'm just going to throw a little thing out here, which I found really interesting, because what I was doing at IVS and Multan was something that just came out of my experience with school, with life, and with understanding younger people and where they needed to go. And what I found really helpful eventually was the fact that there was somebody else, and if anybody wants to look into this guy, maybe you've heard of him before? Ken Robinson? Anybody hear of him? Sir Ken Robinson. This guy was knighted for his work on basically finding, well, basically what I was doing, how finding your passion changes everything. So it's basically, he actually wrote a thesis on how education should be changed to include the arts, because this is something that that's really going to be pivotal moving forward, to have creative people in whatever workplace. So if you want to do a little bit of studying, read that book. It's awesome. As for what I'm doing currently, I'll just wrap it up with that quickly here. That woman who was very helpful in Multan is now my wife. We live in Canada. I've now replaced motorcycles after breaking way too many bones with bicycles, and I'm really enjoying that. We have a business photographing architecture, and you like that one? So, but what I also enjoy doing is actually, I'm interested in the process of architecture, so I love doing things like this. Now, in the world of architecture, if you hire an architectural photographer like myself, it's expensive. So oftentimes I don't get to do projects like this. So in the true spirit of identifying problems, designing solutions, we started a program years ago where I started teaching architects and engineers how to do their own photography so that they could do those process photography photographs and do them on your own. So that's a big part of what we do in Toronto. Aside from that, I'm interested in urban planning, green spaces. I am often found on my bicycle exploring areas. By this is central Toronto. Like, that's awesome. Yay, Toronto. Less smog too. Anyways, I'm just going to leave you with something. One other little thing that we're doing. It's not little, it's big. Given the situation in the world today, I think I wanted to figure out a way to contribute to world peace. And I read a biography recently on a particular person that I think everyone here will be familiar with. And I'm just going to read you a section out of that biography that I'll leave you with, and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay, here goes. But above all, we can learn from Muhammad how to make peace. His whole career shows the first priority must be to extirpate. Now, if I had to look that one up, extirpate means to wipe away completely, leaving no trace. His whole career shows the first priority must be to extirpate greed, hatred, and contempt from our own hearts and to reform our own society. Only then is it possible to build a safe, stable world where people can live together in harmony and respect each other's differences. So that's the project of my wife and I. We're working on that. Now, if we figure out how to do it, we'll be back to do a workshop, okay? So thank you so much for coming.